efficiencies.
Yeah, I see something just really within the last half hour coming out from the Treasury, a news release talking about £15 billion worth of efficiency savings. Now, this was a bit of a shock to the system when it started coming out at the beginning of this week, because we'd been expecting £5 billion, and we were thinking, are they tripling it? Now, the one thing I would say, and I've yet to go through all the fine print here, is they're talking about £6 billion coming out of this current spending period that we're in now, and the rest then being delivered later. So it's maybe not changing things as much as we thought in this particular short term, but they are projecting more later, although who knows who'll be in power later.
Okay, well, let's try to sort of bring some clarity to this in the discussion, not confuse perhaps what may be two issues, because what's an efficiency saving and what is a cut in the budget? I mean, first of all, Simon Hamilton, let's deal with this £15 billion figure that we've been discussing over the last day or so, and the potential, I think, if you take, say, 3% of that as to how that would impact in Northern Ireland, and that's where you come up with a figure, I think, of about 450 over. And again, there's speculations of what the period is. So, first of all, on the efficiency savings, what are the likely impacts here?
Well, I think that the Treasury are talking about scope for up to £15 billion worth of savings and £6 billion this CSR period, which would be much more in line with previous predictions. But whether it's 6 or 15 or when it is or what it is, I shudder to think at what the consequences of that could be to Northern Ireland. We're in the midst of a recession. A lot of the public expenditure that we have in Northern Ireland, particularly investment in infrastructure, is well recognised as helping us to get out of that recession. I would shudder to think that this could actually lengthen and deepen the impact of the downturn in Northern Ireland. And what has to be remembered is that the CSR settlement that Northern Ireland received, and also the principle that any efficiencies made in Northern Ireland would be retained in Northern Ireland, were part of the financial package agreed by all of the parties and the government before devolution.
And when was that particular period due to last until?
That was over the CSR period, and that agreement was as much part of the deal that restored this place as anything else. And I think the government have to realise that we are coming out of a much more difficult period than other parts of the UK. We are obviously, we're not against efficiencies. Efficiencies is something that we all want to see, but driven right throughout government. But Northern Ireland needs to have that cushion that was there within that package, that was an essential part of the restoration of devolution, and the government shouldn't renege and back off on its commitments that it gave to the people of Northern Ireland.
Simon Hamilton, there's been a lot of talk from some of the other parties here at Stormont about how the executive might have to revisit the whole programme for government and budget. I mean, if we do see Alistair Darling coming through and saying, look, £6 billion in efficiencies, do you think that will be the time when they will have to take that step here?
Well, I don't think that the programme for government really is up for renegotiation, because it sets as its principal objective growing a vibrant and dynamic economy, and given the current economic downturn, that's exactly what you would set as your priority today as well. But clearly, if you're looking at several hundred millions of savings or cuts to services here, then that is going to affect budget lines, no doubt about that whatsoever. And I don't think that really at this stage anybody can look to be immune from those savings as well. So certainly, budgets are looked at all the time, in year, at the end of year, and clearly whenever there would be cuts potentially of this sort of level, budgets will have to be looked at again, and it's hard to imagine that anybody would be immune from that. And that's where you see the potentially devastating impact what the government may or may not be proposing.
When you say potentially devastating, give us an illustration of where you think this could have an impact.
Well, I don't want to get into sort of potentially scaremongering at this stage, but I mean, clearly if you're going to take over 100 million or more out of the Northern Ireland economy, it could have a devastating effect on the delivery of all sorts of services within the public sector. But it's not even that I'm concerned about, it's the impact that it would have on the economy. The wider economy in Northern Ireland is very dependent on the public sector, and it could actually stunt our ability to get ourselves out of the recession that we're in at this moment in time.
Are the DUP waking up to this a bit late in the day? Because after the initial indications from Westminster that it wanted to see some money coming back from the regional administration, Scotland was very quick to identify 5,000 jobs potentially lost. And we were told here, there's no problem, it'll be fine, we have this agreement. Perhaps if you chatted a bit more about it, you might have been able to stop what may happen.
Well, sir, we had the agreement was in place in the restoration of devolution, but that has not made the executive in any way forgetful of the fact that we need to drive efficiencies in the government in Northern Ireland. And you see a lot of efficiencies right across the board. There's already a 3% CSR savings going on at this minute in time. The establishment of the likes of the Performance and Efficiency Delivery Unit by Peter Robinson to try to drive efficiency and effectiveness right into the heart of government. So that has been an objective that we have had right from the start. But what we're talking about here, plain and simple, is cuts, I think, to our budget line, our bottom line, and that will have a detrimental effect far beyond simple efficiency savings that would be retained here, and that's where there's going to be a real problem coming out of it.